Right, hello, and welcome to the latest LaoisToday Talking Sport Podcast episode. So this is our senior football final preview. St. Joseph's play Portlaoise in Moore Park on Sunday at 3:30. The big football game of the year. It's the biggest modern rivalry in Laois football, you could say. Stradbury and Grey Cullen were a big deal in the 20s, 30s and 40s. But since 1970, there has been no pairing that has happened as often as Portlaoise and Joseph's. Now it's 21 years since they last played each other in a final. The last time Joseph's were in a final, and there were new rivalries with Portlaoise. There were the two teams most likely to break Portarlington's dominance, Alan, and we have a final now without Portarlington. And between the two teams, I suppose that we're leading the queue. Yeah, obviously O'Dempsey's, Ballyrowan were decent teams, but Joseph's and Portlaoise probably that little bit stronger than both of them, and so it has proved in this championship anyway.
Yeah, well, in fairness, you were very, very solid on Joseph from the start. I wasn't on that train, I wasn't. You were, in fairness. You said it from the off that you thought they were the team that this was their year, and so it has proven so far. I mean, they have beaten teams that you would consider to be within the top 5 or 6 in the rankings if you were going that way about it. I mean, they've dethroned the 3-in-a-row champions. They've already beaten Portlaoise. They beat Ballyrowan, and Emo. So they're all teams that are in the upper echelons of Laois Club football, and the stars seem to be aligning across the Windy Gap and on the rest of the way over there for them, yeah.
So we have a huge week coverage planned. Barry McEvoy, our colleague Barry, was in St. Joseph's last Saturday. They had a sort of a press event. Gone are the day when you can just I suppose you can do it in intermediate and Premier Intermediate. I suppose that you can just go on and get your own interviews, and that's the best way. But of course, if they're being tormented by us and Midlands 103 and the Leinster and the Nationalists, Clubber now are on the scene as well. It makes sense that they follow the county scene and have a bit of a press event. And it makes it easier for us then as well, to an extent, going to the club, getting your interviews the same go, rather than trying to line them up individually. But Barry was in St. Joseph's on Saturday, and on this episode we'll hear from Captain Brian Daly. You were in Portlaoise last night, and we'll hear from Portlaoise captain Ciaran McEvoy. And in a separate episode, we will hear from the two managers. We got good interviews with the two managers, Kevin Fitzpatrick in Portlaoise and Mick Dempsey in St. Joseph's. And on top of that, then I'm recording an episode in St. Joseph's about St. Joseph's. And it's a little bit like Abbey Leagues last week. We're not being biased towards one club over another. It's just that Joseph's have been so long without being in final. Since we started LaoisToday, I think this is Portlaoise's 5th final. 17, 18, 19, 21, 22... or 21 and 23, so this is their 5th final. Yeah. So, and it's Joseph's first time in 21 years being a final, and they're going for their first championship in 23 years. I had a stat there before the intermediate final that Ballylinan were the club with the longest gap between championships. Now the Ballylinan have ended that. It's Joseph's, so no club in Laois is longer than. I think that's probably fair to say. Yeah, it would be, yeah. There's no club in Laois is longer without a championship with their first team now than St. Joseph's, and they'll be looking to end that on Sunday. We'll do our predictions at the very end, but I am sticking with Joseph's. I think last year I was sort of sweet on St. Joseph's a little bit because I thought Portarlington might have regressed a bit, and I thought Joseph's were the best place to come on and challenge them. They sort of let a quarter-final slip from their grasp, and O'Dempsey's then got into the final on what was a softer enough side of the draw the way it turned out, because they wouldn't have played Portarlington or Portlaoise in a semi-final. It would have been Courtwood, and it would have been a winnable game for them. And they let an opportunity slip to an extent. But they've come back this year, and they've more or less performed in every game. I'd say their only real wobble, they won the league last year, and then they got back to the league final this year, and they played a strong Portarlington team in the final. A stronger Portarlington team in the league final than they played in the semi-final of the championship. And it was a really good game, and Joseph's performed. Now, Joseph's were without James Kelly and Adam Campion that day, but Joseph seemed to have been without one or two guys most days, and they've a decent panel. And I'm going to stick with Joseph's. I've been on this sort of hobby horse all year that I think Joseph's time has come, and I'm going to stick with it. But when I just mapped the two teams out on a sheet of paper here this morning and looked at the way they lined out in the semi-finals, I said, Jesus, there's absolutely nothing between them. And then the odds, Portlaoise are slight favourites, like the slightest of favourites, +1 with the bookies to win it. But like it's as tight. They're not even your pick, but Portlaoise are the slighter favourites in it. You were at the first game that they played. I think it's fair to say both teams have improved from that game. So it's I just think Joseph's, I think there's a couple of things. I think they have a great panel of players. I think Owen O'Flaherty has come into them. This is his second year. I reckon he's more settled this year, but I reckon he's 35 or so. So he's not going to be, his best days are behind him. And I think it's sort of, he's very crucial to them. And I think the timing is quite right now. But that's a very solid Portlaoise team as well. There's no obvious weak links. There's no star power as there was previously, but it's a very solid. The two clubs are so similar. The two teams are so, they're not, as clubs they're not, because Joseph's are a big club in a sprawling geographic area, but it's not very densely populated. I think we have a stat that there's about 130 students between the three schools in the St. Joseph's area. And what is there, 3,000 in school in Portlaoise?
Yeah, something mad like that.
There's 500. There's 500 in the Holy Family Senior School, which is half of the. Yeah, there's some classes in Mulphill and the Swan where there's nobody. There's nobody in a class. Like, there might be no second class or no class, no actual students, boys or girls. But I'm going down to Joseph's, and one of the things I have to get aligned is where Joseph starts and finish geographically, But so that's a big. But like, they're both managers, Mick Dempsey with Joseph's and Kevin Fitzpatrick with Portlaoise, from their own club in their fourth year. There's not that many clubs stick with managers for their fourth year who haven't won a championship, especially in big traditional clubs like these. I think both teams have a stronger defence than they have an attack. And I think both have quite strong panels, as we've seen, like they've missed guys during the year. But you've seen more of these games than I have, and Portlaoise have timed to run well.
Yeah, like they've steadily got better with every game. I mean, the first day, that first game against Joseph's wasn't nice to look at now, and it wouldn't it wouldn't suggest that the final on Sunday is going to be great to look at either, because I would imagine the two teams will play in a quite similar way, and it'll be tight and cagey. I can't see it being too open. Like, I can't see it being the spectacle that we got in the hurling final at the weekend, where someone gets a hat trick in 15 minutes. I don't think we're going to get anything like that. But Portlaoise steadily improved as it went along. Like, after that, they were Rose and Alison Hardis clean. Now, I asked Kevin Fitzpatrick about those games, and he sort of said that, like, you had to adapt to the style that you were going to be faced with, and they knew that both of those teams were going to block it up defensively and make it difficult for them, which they did. So the turning point for me was the Dempsey's match. I thought Portlaoise were excellent that night, and they carried that on then into the Grey Cullen game, where they were really, really good again, and they won that game by 3 points, but really they won it by much more. Like, they conceded goals that they would normally concede to give away chances, and were punished, but they were too good still. So I think they've timed their run nicely. I like the balance in their team. Ciaran, I think, is going to be able to play a bigger part than he has over the last couple of games. Like, he's only come on for the last 5 minutes on both occasions, and he's kicked the point in both games. It's some type of foot injury he has. But they seem to be fairly confident that he'll be able to play more than what he has done over the last 2 games. So he'll also be a help. But even if he doesn't play, I think the balance in their team now, with Kevin Sway and David Lark and Ciaran McEvoy operating around the middle, Cahalane closer to goals, Benny Carroll and Ricky Marr, seems to be working for them. Like, Joseph's were without Matty Campion and Josh O'Brien the last day. They were both injured. I don't know whether they're going to make it back. Matty and Josh weren't even tagged 2 weeks ago. Matty got injured at the end of the game against Emo, and I don't know what happened to Josh. He must have been in training in between.
Matty Campion is a very good player. Like, he was in around Laois panels and that, very strong,
he was
strong,
excellent,
powerful,
well,
athletic type of guy. And Joseph's, then you've seen them nearly every day as well. Like, that was, I know it was the first round and they scraped past Portlaoise, but it was their first win over Portlaoise in 20 years.
Oh, yeah.
And they had lost so many. I think they'd lost 5. They've been knocked out of the championship 5 years out of the past 6 by Portlaoise. So for them to win that, and they beat them in the league a couple of times, which was important enough. But to beat them in the championship was a big one, and like, they were horsing lads out over the sideline that night, and they were delighted with it afterwards. It didn't mean anything for the overall thing of the championship, but it meant a lot to St. Joseph's, and they would have been damaged by losing that one. So you've seen them since, like, they got the better of Ballyroan narrowly. They kept Emo in the game to an extent. Emo are an attacking type team, and then there's like 6 points to spare over Portarlington. Like that's.
They were excellent. They were absolutely excellent against Portlaoise. It was the best performance I've seen from Joseph's in probably since they won it. Like they were absolutely brilliant in every facet of the game. They were hungrier, they were so efficient in front of goals. They like Owen O'Flaherty, Mick Keogh, Dylan Doyle was obviously into the team in place of Matty Campion, and Garrod Lynch came in for Josh O'Brien. Like they're fair replacements to have, aren't they? Like the
They've
depth that they have in
strengthened their panel. Like Garrod Lynch and Ian Shanahan were both on the Laois Senior Hurling panel. Them both were in America. So, like, I remember someone joking to me early in the year, it could have been a Kelly Cup game or something, that Joseph's were weak because the Laois Senior Hurlers were playing that weekend, which was a funny one. But those two lads are two seriously powerful, athletic guys, and have gone, are making a big contribution to their senior team now. So they have a decent panel. Like, I think if you look at the lads that didn't play the last year, didn't start, Ian Shanahan, Sean Brennan, Matty Campion, Josh O'Brien, Jamie O'Brien, Conor Keeley, they've all played senior championships. They're all good senior club players. I think they've a good balance to their team. Again, that's another similarity between the teams. They're very well balanced and no absolute out and out stars. There's no. You take Ciaran Lillis out of it now, and there's no established senior county player between the two teams starting. Damon Larkin and Kevin Swain were in and out of the Laois team this year. Brian Daly has had a few runs. James Kelly had and Adam Campion over time, but no one currently established on the Laois senior team, which is a sort of an unusual one for a senior county final.
Probably shows the nature of it as well. Like, I think Mikey Dempsey has been brilliant, and if Joseph's do get over the line, I think he'll have to be given a shout for Player of the Year. He's been excellent in every game I've watched him in. Similarly with James Kelly, like James Kelly's pure class. Like he's absolutely brilliant. He can defend, he can kick scores from distance. Aidan Brennan is a dog for the hard road. He's just a pure warrior back there as well. So look, the matchups are going to be fascinating to see, because who does Ben Dempsey? What poor forward's going to get saddled with Ben Dempsey now on Sunday? Probably Flaherty, yeah.
Or David Seal. David Seal didn't play at all last year, and now he's back.
No.
Like, I don't think I've ever seen a Laois footballer do a better job on Paul Mannion than David Seal did in the Leinster club in 2018. And he got a few runs in the league with Laois. He was involved under John Sugru a little bit. He wasn't there last year. He was off. He went on a motorbike to South Africa or somewhere. The maddest adventure. And I remember chatting to him because we had an interview with him about that experience. And he was back for the whole joke was that they were going to go on a motorbike from Laois to South Africa. I don't think they made it all the way, but they went through the maddest of countries. And the joke was to be back for Portlaoise in the county final. They got back for the semi-final, but Portlaoise didn't get to the final. But he's a very good player.
I think of the back seven the last day, he was the only one that had won the championship.
Yeah, so Conor Raggett is his first year up, Colin McEvoy second year up, Mikey Dowling, I'd say, doesn't have it unless he's a medal from 2019.
He might have been on. He would have been on the panel, I'd say.
Okay, yeah. McGovern, no, he sort of is an older player, but has only sort of come back to playing football in the last year or so. And Ben Dempsey doesn't. Yeah, Kevin Swain wouldn't. Ciaran McEvoy would. Even if you go on upwards, like Conor Brown, obviously goalkeeper, doesn't. Damon Larkin, I'd say Larkin probably has one from 19.
He did. Played in 2019.
Benny Carroll, I'd say, has three in a row. Ben Redden wouldn't have one, I'd say. No. Ricky Marr would have. He'd have a good few. Garrett Dillon obviously has a good few. Cahalan has a good few. Yeah. So the team has changed.
The back seven, like the exception of Seal, would be because like Gary Saunders hasn't played at all really this year. I think he got a hamstring injury early, and then he got another hamstring injury on the other side. So and it's been very hard to see him coming into the team now, given how settled that defence has become.
Yeah. I definitely agree with you. And I sort of a written preview piece done for the site, and I predicted in the match that it'll be low scoring. Don't be surprised if there isn't a goal. Don't be surprised if it's nervy. Don't be surprised if it's edgy. Like they'll be all well able to be bowled enough now and physical enough. And don't be a bit surprised if there are cards, black or red, because Maurice Deegan is reffing it, and he will lay down the law early, and he won't take any messing. And so you have the two best teams, you have the top referee. So I think you could see something like a score maybe of like 10 points to 8 or 12 points to 9 or something. And it might even be over egging it, It could be 7-6 or something like that. And look, they're Maybe that's an exaggeration, but tell you what we'll do. We'll hear from Ciaran McEvoy. You spoke to Ciaran McEvoy in Portlaoise. Barry interviewed Brian Daly in St. Joseph's, and we'll come back then, pick out your key battles, and we'll do our predictions. All right, that was the two lads. Thanks to Barry, who went down to Kellyville last Saturday, and you were in Portlaoise's GA grounds in Ratleague. Why didn't you call it Ratleague? Rateven is the soccer grounds in Ratleague. I mixed that up one time in a match report. I said Portlaoise bet Emo in Rateven. So
Rosslyon is
Rosslyon.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, the other place is a housing estate in Portlaoise. Sorry. I get rightly mixed up. Anyway,
I was never when you mentioned Ratleague, I was actually never in the clubhouse part of it before. I was only ever in the dressing rooms for matches and stuff.
What's the clubhouse part of it?
So there's a kind of a clubhouse part of it beside the dressing rooms. It's all the same, same structure. But yeah, exactly. But the huge plans there for what their redevelopment that they're trying to do with their Town 25 initiative.
Town 25, yeah. One thing we may do over the winter now, I want to get an interview with Teddy Fennelly, the chairman, because there's fair energy there in that club at the moment.
There is.
And I said in the ladies football one this week that I think once Portlaoise, I think they took their eye off the ball at one stage. I can't pinpoint exactly what happened, and their underage football success is absolutely dried up. They haven't won a minor under 21 since about 2010 or 11 years. I'd say they've never gone as long. They're very rarely successful now at under 13, under 15, under 17. To be the odd one, but like that's so abnormal to what I was used to growing up. The Portlaoise were in winning underage county finals left, right, and centre. But I think to get their act together now. I said in the ladies football, you have structures and numbers, and there'll be no time again before we'll all be giving out saying there should be 2 or 3 clubs in Portlaoise. But that's not to say they're going to win on Sunday. Anyway, couple of key battles. You're saying Ben Dempsey on whatever Joseph's forward he goes on to. Around the middle is going to be huge. Like if Ciaran McEvoy, Kevin Swain against Garrod Lynch, Mikey Dempsey. I don't fancy that Portlaoise could win that sort of that sector.
That's probably where, like, if you go back over the years when Portlaoise were dominant, midfield was nearly where they struggled. They didn't really have established midfielders. Now we'd have loads of them. They've an embarrassment of riches in midfield. Like they could conceivably put out 4. McEvoy, Lillis, Swain, and Larkin could all play there. Like it's mad, really, the way it has flipped over.
I still think, I noticed Portlaoise got 115 in the semi-final, which was the biggest score I'd say they've gotten in a good few years. 15 points anyway.
Was it 113 of that from play or something like that? It was very impressive.
But I don't know, they definitely won't get scores as easily this week. Joseph's will be very tight on it. But I was more confident on Joseph's until I mapped out all the 1-on-1s, and now I'm a little bit. I'm going for Joseph's to win in a game fraught with nervousness, and it to be something like 10 points to 8 to St. Joseph's.
There's a stat here from 50 years ago, 1973. Ballyline won the intermediate. Cameras won the senior.
Hurling.
And who won the senior football?
Yeah. Joseph's won their first ever senior because we had a 50-year.
Yeah. Also won their first ever senior. So
Joseph's have only bet Portlaoise. Joseph's have only ever bet Portlaoise in 1 senior final. They've played in 5 finals, and Portlaoise have won 1, and Joseph's have. Portlaoise won 4, and Joseph's won 1. Portlaoise bet Joseph's in 1970. I did the county final memory on it, and with Joseph's had won like intermediate junior in 67 and intermediate maybe in 69, and got to the senior final in their very first year up. They had started out as a juvenile club and only became an adult club when they all came of age. And they lost. They missed the free in the last minute to bring it to a replay, and there was an almighty row apparently. And like the report at the time was there, not pleasant scenes and all this. Like, so apparently a huge row at the end of the county final. They came back 3 years later. I think it was Timahoe to beat in the final for their first one. And then they won them in 75, 77 and 78. And they got the 2 Leinster club finals. They played in Croke Park against Walsh Island, the great Walsh Island of Matt Connor, Richie Connor, all those guys in a Leinster final in the 70s, mid-70s. And they played the great Vincent's team of Dublin in a final, in a tie. And apparently they could have won that one in one of the years. Who stopped them doing the 3 in a row in 79? Only Portlaoise. And I think Billy O'Bahan kicked the winner to bet them 110 to 1-9. And then they met in finals in 99. Mick Lillis was manager, Ciaran Lillis was mascot, and Portlaoise ended their 8-year famine They bet them in the 99 final. They played again in the 2000 final, and Colm Kelly, Chucky, was only 15.
Okay.
He was under 15. To think about that now, you have to be 18. You have to be like under 18 to play. Chucky scored a goal in the final, and his brother Stephen scored 10 points, and Joseph beat Portlaoise that year. And then they met again.
It's not mad. Like you'd wonder about that now, because I I see our own under 15s. I couldn't. And some of the lads are very good. I think they'd be killed if you put them out playing senior.
Well, I'm not sure you remember what the size of Colm Chucky Kelly when he was 15, and like he was, and everyone knew him because he was so big as a young fella, all the way up along. Like he was a giant of a man when he was about 12. I remember playing under 16 match when I was 14, and he was 12 playing under 16. So like it wouldn't happen, and they wouldn't be allowed now. And like he was in the full forward line with his brother Stephen, and he ran the show obviously that day and kicked 10 points, but under 15, yeah, and maybe too much was asked of him too soon because he probably didn't deliver on his ability, and he had a lot of injuries afterwards. And there's a reason they have changed the age thing. Like I'd say back then, the under 16 championship probably had to be delayed because Joseph got to the senior final. But in 2002, then Portlaoise came back and hammered Joseph in the final. It was the first final in front of the new stand in O'Moore Park. And the following year, then they played in the quarter final on a Tuesday afternoon. The game was played at 4 o'clock on a Tuesday afternoon because Tom Kelly and Higgins, the championship got delayed because they went so well in London Leinster, got to All-Ireland quarter final. The minors then won the All-Ireland. That delayed the whole of it. And the quarter final between Portlaoise and Joseph's was played on a Tuesday afternoon at 4 o'clock because there was no floodlights in O'Moore Park, and Kelly and Higgins were going to play with Ireland in the international rules in Australia the next day or something. And they had to wait until they came back from Australia to play the semi-final. And Stradley bet them. And Portlaoise never bet, or Joseph's never bet Portlaoise in the championship again until this year. But can you imagine that now as well? Like a championship match played at 4 o'clock on a Tuesday afternoon. Social media do still give it out about that.
Yeah, can you imagine that? Yeah, sorry to all the employers. I'm going off there to play a match. Yeah, mad, absolutely mad.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm going with Joseph's in a nervy, edgy, possibly bad-tempered, foul-mouthed affair. And
I'm going to go with Portlaoise. I just think that but Joseph beating the first day. It's going to be hard to do that again for a second time. Portlaoise's momentum is behind them. They seem to have all to be clicked a lot better. I was very skating of them in the early rounds of it. I thought they were very, very ordinary looking, but they seem to have clicked. They've got everything together now. And it wouldn't be fair of me now to hop onto the Joseph's bandwagon that you've been on. I have to leave you on that train now and off you go. Actually, I wouldn't be fair to do that.
So look, we're split jury. We should again. This is the second. What other game did we recently have a split jury on?
We were in agreement. We were in agreement on last year's county final, I think, and was it the one before that? Did you tip Portlaoise to be Portlaoise?
No, I did not. I absolutely did not.
No, that was Billy O'Loughlain, wasn't he? Yeah, it was Billy O'Loughlain. Yeah. Oh no, it was last year we weren't in agreement. You went with O'Dempsey's.
I went with O'Dempsey's. Jesus Christ, yeah. Jeez, that one. That's a black mark against my name. I got that one a bit wrong, all right.
The other thing that's going to be different about this year's final is the weather. The weather's actually going to be fine. Last year's final was played in horrible conditions, wasn't it? It was pissing.
Oh jeez, it was rotten. It was absolutely rotten. The year before wasn't great either, but it was much later because of COVID. It was sort of nearly played under lights. I think that is a factor that hammering that Portlaoise got 2 years ago from Port Arlington, and that was an embarrassing sort of humbling experience for Portlaoise. Portlaoise have a motto. Portlaoise don't lose finals. That's one of Portlaoise's mottos. Portlaoise don't lose finals. Now, they lose the odd one, but they don't lose too many of them. The other thing is, if it's a draw, it doesn't go to extra time, it goes to a replay. I don't know when the replay is penciled in for, because the Leinster club is down for the following Sunday, which will be a great occasion as well. It's against Éire Óg in Dr. Cullen Park.
It's down for the following Saturday night at 7 o'clock.
Oh, is it? It must be on TV.
Is it the televised?
Must be on TV, yeah.
Yeah, geez. So you'd have to play the final like midweek then or something.
Yeah, well, I know my own club are in the junior final on Friday night, and if that goes to a replay, it's on Tuesday night. So they must have O'Moore Park ready for then. And that wouldn't be unprecedented,
And it wouldn't be beyond the realms of possibility that
it absolutely wouldn't be. Absolutely wouldn't be, yeah.
I wouldn't mind that 2 days.
That would be good fun. Yeah. Wednesday night county final. That'd be great crack.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind that at all. Yeah.
But anyway, it's not beyond the realms of possibility. Anyway, we're a split camp. You're staying with Portlaoise. I'm sticking with Joseph's, and Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Best of luck to look. It's a great occasion, county final day. It was a great occasion on Moore Park last Sunday for the hurling. You know, the band, the parade, the crowd on the terrace. It's just a bigger day, and it's great for both communities. And like Portlaoise supporters or club people have put in a massive effort. There are flags all over Portlaoise. They've really pushed the boat out. I'm looking forward to going for a spin around Wolf Hill and Lugacorn and the Swan and Ballyadams and all these places now to see their effort at the flags.
Yeah,
Anyway,
I'm off
look,
to the schools on Thursday up there, so I'm looking forward
yeah,
to seeing how they'll
yeah,
all
yeah,
be getting
yeah.
on.
All right.
The same in Portlaoise.
Same in Portlaoise. Right, split jury. I'm going for Joseph's, you're going for Portlaoise. We'll leave it at that. Over now. Good luck. God bless. Goodbye.